Welcome, travelers, to Adventures in Security. In this, the second of 3 videos in the Cybersecurity Risk Analysis and Management series, I describe the different categories of threat modeling and risk analysis organizations can choose from to drive their risk management strategies. The link to the study guide for this video, along with the supporting bibliography, is available in the video description. If you like this video, if you learned something, be sure to like it and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any content. Selecting an appropriate risk analysis model is a critical step in strengthening an organization's security posture. With various models available, ranging from attack-based to control-centric approaches, choosing the right fit requires a thoughtful assessment of the organization's specific needs and priorities. This video explores 7 distinct categories of risk analysis models, offering insights into their methodologies, benefits, and applicability. By understanding these approaches, organizations can adopt tailored strategies to address vulnerabilities, mitigate threats, and enhance overall security. Whether opting for a single model or a hybrid combination, this guide provides the foundational knowledge to make informed decisions and achieve a robust risk management framework. Before beginning any analysis steps, an organization should research and select either a single risk analysis model or a hybrid, which combines elements from 2 or more models to best suit the organization. Based on the approach taken, models fall into 7 categories: attack-based, risk and issue-based, threat-based, human-centric, privacy-based, multidimensional, and control-centric. Attack-based risk analysis models concentrate on understanding how an adversary might plan and execute attacks against an organization's systems, applications, or infrastructure. Rather than centering solely on assets or vulnerabilities, these models detail the specific tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, that attackers employ throughout various stages of an attack. By profiling threat actors and mapping their likely intrusion, escalation, and exfiltration methods, security teams can better anticipate real-world scenarios, prioritize defensive measures, and allocate resources to the areas of highest impact. Examples of attack-based models include MITRE attack, a highly detailed knowledge base that categorizes adversary tactics and techniques based on real-world observations. Security professionals use ATT&CK to map which techniques attackers are most likely to use against their environment, identify gaps in existing defenses, and shape threat hunting or detection efforts. Lockheed Martin's Cyber Kill Chain, a model that breaks down an attack into distinct phases: reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and actions on objectives. By understanding and monitoring these stages, defenders can implement measures that detect or disrupt an adversary before they complete their mission. The CVSS Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS. CVSS is a standardized method for measuring the severity of software or system vulnerabilities, assigning scores from 0.0, lowest, to 10.0, highest. It is divided into 3 metric groups: base, temporal, and environmental. The base metrics analyze a vulnerability's intrinsic characteristics, including how easily it can be exploited and the potential consequences for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Temporal metrics account for factors that change over time, such as the availability of exploit code or patches. Environmental metrics enable organizations to customize the score based on their unique context, including the criticality of the affected systems and data. By offering a uniform scoring model, CVSS helps security teams, vendors, and researchers prioritize remediation strategies and communicate vulnerability severity clearly. This consistent approach facilitates collaboration within the cybersecurity community, allowing stakeholders to make informed decisions and better protect systems from emerging threats. The Common Weakness Enumeration, CWE, The CWE is a community-driven catalog of software and hardware weaknesses that underlie security vulnerabilities. It provides a shared language for identifying, categorizing, and prioritizing potential flaws, ranging from coding errors to design oversights. By mapping known vulnerabilities to specific CWEs, developers and security teams gain insights into how attackers could exploit them and which fixes or mitigations are most effective. This approach to risk analysis facilitates a structured comparison of weaknesses across different platforms, enabling organizations to allocate resources and remediation efforts more efficiently while guiding best practices in secure development. Penetration Testing Execution Standard, PTES. The PTES is a comprehensive methodology that defines how security professionals systematically conduct penetration tests, from pre-engagement interactions and intelligence gathering to exploitation and reporting. It aims to establish a consistent model for planning, executing, and documenting penetration tests, ensuring that testers adopt best practices and deliver meaningful results. By following PTS, organizations gain a clearer understanding of their security posture, identify vulnerabilities, and strengthen defenses against real-world threats. The standard covers technical processes as well as documentation, ethics, and legal considerations, facilitating more reliable, professional, and repeatable penetration testing engagements. These attack-based models help organizations move beyond abstract risk rankings and instead align their defenses with the concrete steps threat actors take. Security teams leveraging such models can identify critical detection points and prioritize mitigations tailored to how real intrusions unfold. Before we look at risk-based models, a clarification of terms. A risk is the potential for something to happen, with either positive or negative results. If a risk manifests, it can create an issue or an opportunity. An opportunity is a positive result of risk manifestation, and an issue is negative, usually resulting in unwanted and unexpected costs. I only address negative risks in this video, focusing on issues. Risk-based risk analysis focuses on the potential business impact of adverse events, aligning security measures with the organization's strategic priorities. Instead of examining every threat or vulnerability in isolation, this approach assesses the consequences of disruptions to critical processes, data, or systems, ensuring that the highest risks receive the greatest attention. Analysts determine what is most essential to the business mission, evaluate relevant threats and vulnerabilities for those key areas, and estimate the likelihood and impact of possible incidents. With these factors determined, the organization ranks risks accordingly, enabling more informed decision-making about where to allocate resources. By considering both probability and severity, risk-based risk analysis allows leadership to ensure that protective measures align with the organization's risk appetite and cost constraints. This dynamic approach adapts to changes in technology, regulations, and market conditions, maintaining an up-to-date perspective on the organization's overall security and business resilience. Examples of risk-based approaches include OWASP Top 10. The OWASP Top 10 is a widely recognized awareness document for web application security, describing the most critical risks facing web apps. Maintained by the Open Web Application Security Project, it helps developers and security professionals identify, mitigate, and address vulnerabilities such as injection, broken access control, and sensitive data exposure. Updated periodically to reflect emerging threats, it serves as a best practice baseline for securing web applications throughout their lifecycle. By adhering to the OWASP Top 10 recommendations, organizations can enhance their security posture and protect users' data from common, yet often preventable exploits. Process for Attack Simulation and Threat Analysis, PASTA. PASTA is a risk-based methodology that provides a comprehensive approach to threat modeling, focusing on the business impact of potential attacks. Spanning 7 distinct stages, PASTA starts by defining objectives and understanding the application's context, then systematically identifies threats, maps application architecture, and uncovers vulnerabilities. It simulates realistic adversary behaviors, enabling organizations to determine the most relevant threats and their likely outcomes. By highlighting the critical risks that directly affect key business processes and data, PASTA helps prioritize mitigation efforts, ensuring security resources target the areas where they will have the most significant impact. STRIDE is a threat modeling model developed by Microsoft that helps security teams systematically identify and categorize potential threats to software systems. The name is an acronym representing spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege, each highlighting a specific attack vector. By examining a system through these distinct threat categories, developers and architects can pinpoint where vulnerabilities may arise and consider how best to mitigate them. STRIDE typically operates alongside data flow diagrams or other representations of system architecture, ensuring each critical component is evaluated against the 6 threat types. This method promotes a structured, repeatable approach to anticipating adversarial actions, reducing the risk of overlooking attack vectors. While originally intended for Windows development, STRIDE's principles have been broadly adopted across various platforms, making it a standard practice in security-centric design and threat modeling workflows. DREAD is a risk analysis model used to rank and compare the severity of potential security threats by evaluating 5 specific factors: damage potential, reproducibility, exploitability, affected users, and discoverability. Each factor is assigned a score, typically using a numeric or qualitative scale, and the combined result determines the overall risk rating. For example, damage potential looks at how much harm an exploit could cause, while reproducibility measures how easily an attacker can repeat the exploit. By breaking threats into these distinct criteria, DREAD helps security teams prioritize which vulnerabilities to address first and ensures consistent evaluations across different systems or applications. VAST, Visual, Agile, and Simple Threat, is a risk analysis model designed to integrate threat modeling seamlessly into modern DevOps and Agile development processes. Unlike more traditional methods that can be overly complex or time-consuming, VAST emphasizes clear high-level diagrams and step-by-step workflows to ensure threat modeling becomes part of regular development cycles. It uses 2 distinct application and operational threat models. The first focuses on the technical aspects of an application's architecture, data flows, and potential attacker interactions. The second addresses the broader operational environment, including deployment, infrastructure, and runtime concerns. By splitting these views, VAST offers a holistic, visually driven approach that continuously adapts to changing requirements and rapid release schedules, simplifying communication between developers, security teams, and stakeholders, making it easier to prioritize actions based on identified risks while maintaining speed and innovation in the development lifecycle. Quantitative TMM, threat modeling methodology, is a data-driven model that evaluates security risks by assigning numeric values to both the likelihood and impact of potential threats, rather than relying solely on qualitative categorizations. Using statistical models, historical data, or probability estimates, it translates cybersecurity incidents into financial or operational metrics that business stakeholders can easily understand. By quantifying factors like cost of remediation, loss events, and adversary sophistication, quantitative TMM enables more precise risk comparisons across different systems or threats. This approach helps security teams make informed decisions about where to invest resources, how to prioritize remediation, and what insurance coverage might be warranted. Ultimately, quantitative TMM fosters a clear, evidence-based rationale for cybersecurity strategies, ensuring that organizational budgets and controls align closely with measurable risk reductions. Human-centric cybersecurity risk analysis models concentrate on people's critical role in creating and mitigating security risks. Rather than focusing solely on technical controls, these models consider the behavioral, psychological, and cultural factors that lead employees, contractors, or customers to engage in or fall victim to risky actions, analyzing patterns of user error, insider threats, and social engineering vectors, such as phishing or pretexting, to determine how vulnerabilities arise through everyday interactions. Human-centric approaches aim to reduce the likelihood of security breaches triggered by human mistakes or malicious behavior by emphasizing user awareness, training, organizational culture, and clear policies. These models also encourage ongoing education, adaptive policies, and consistent communication, recognizing that user behaviors and motivations can evolve, helping organizations build a security-minded workforce, complementing technical defenses with human vigilance, and fostering a culture where secure practices become second nature. One example is TRIKE. TRIKE is a risk-based threat analysis model that focuses on human elements, providing a systematic, repeatable approach for identifying, analyzing, and mitigating security threats. Looking at a system's users, actors, their CRUD, creating, reading, updating, deleting, actions, noting whether a given action is allowed, disallowed, or needs to have rules applied for the action to occur. A rule tree, decision tree, or a misuse diagram is applied as needed. First, a data flow diagram, DFD, is applied to identify two types of stride threats: denial of service or elevation of privilege. Next, risks and issues are assessed on a 5-point scale from the standpoint of CRUD actions. Third, actors are evaluated from 2 viewpoints: a 5-point scale for the presumption of risk, and a 3-point scale as to the likelihood of them performing a given action. Privacy-based models are next. To be clear, privacy and confidentiality in risk analysis are related but not the same. Privacy involves protecting the personal information of customers, employees, and other individuals interacting with an organization. Confidentiality applies to sensitive business information, including intellectual property, business strategies, and other classified and categorized data that, if compromised, would impact the organization's bottom line. Privacy-based threat models focus on identifying, analyzing, and mitigating risks related to the privacy of individuals whose data is being processed within a system. These models address concerns such as unauthorized access to personal data, re-identification risks, excessive data collection, and lack of user awareness regarding data usage, helping organizations design systems that align with privacy regulations and best practices, and ensuring that users' information is protected from unintended exposure or misuse. Unlike traditional security threat modeling frameworks, which primarily focus on protecting systems from attacks, unauthorized access, and vulnerabilities that could compromise confidentiality, integrity, and availability, privacy-based threat models emphasize the rights of individuals and the potential risks associated with the handling of personal data. While security models such as STRIDE focus on threats like spoofing, tampering, and elevation of privilege, privacy models like LUNDUN consider aspects such as linkability, identifiability, and detectability. Privacy-based models go beyond security to consider legal, ethical, and transparency issues, ensuring that personal data is processed fairly, with proper consent, and in compliance with privacy laws. The LUNDUN threat model is a privacy-focused framework designed to identify and mitigate privacy risks in a system. It provides a structured approach to analyzing how personal data is processed, stored, and transmitted, ensuring compliance with privacy principles and regulations. LUNDUN stands for linkability, identifiability, non-repudiation, detectability, disclosure of information, unawareness, and non-compliance. Each of these categories represents a specific type of privacy threat that can arise in a system. The LUNDUN threat model is a structured framework specifically designed to identify, analyze, and mitigate privacy risks in a system. It focuses on how personal data is processed, stored, and transmitted, ensuring compliance with privacy principles and regulatory requirements. Each of these components represents a different type of privacy threat that could arise in a system, allowing organizations to assess risks and implement privacy safeguards systematically. The model follows the following steps. First, define the system. The first step in applying LUNDUN is system modeling, where the system's architecture is analyzed to understand its components, data flows, and actors. This involves identifying where personal data is collected, stored, processed, and shared within the system. By gaining a clear understanding of how data moves and is handled, organizations can determine which areas pose potential privacy risks. Second, identify threats. Once the system model is established, the next step is threat identification. Using the LUNDUN categories, analysts systematically analyze potential privacy threats and related vulnerabilities associated with the system, including examining how data can be linked across different sources, linkability, whether individuals can be uniquely identified, identifiability, whether actions can be traced back to users without their consent, non-repudiation, whether unauthorized parties can detect certain activities, detectability, whether the organization collects, stores, or processes personal information no longer needed or collected haphazardly during business operations, disclosure of information. The level of user awareness regarding safeguarding personal information, unawareness. Compliance with local and federal privacy laws, such as the GLBA, non-compliance. Third, perform risk analysis. Following the identification of threats, a privacy risk analysis is conducted to evaluate the likelihood and impact of each identified threat, prioritizing threats based on the potential consequences to individuals and regulatory compliance. The severity of risks is determined by considering the sensitivity of the personal data involved and the potential harm to the organization that could result from misuse or exposure. Fourth, manage the risk. Once risks have been assessed, risk management strategies are implemented to address identified impacts. Various privacy supporting techniques are used to minimize risks, such as anonymization and encryption to protect sensitive data, access controls to limit who can view or modify information, including least privilege, need to know and separation of duties, data minimization practices to collect only the necessary information. Fifth, validation and monitoring. To maintain privacy in the long term, validation and monitoring are essential, involving the regular testing of the system to detect new privacy threats and vulnerabilities that may emerge over time. Privacy policies and security measures must be continuously updated to keep up with evolving regulations and technological changes. Regular audits help ensure compliance, and user education programs raise awareness about data privacy practices. By fostering transparency and accountability, organizations can strengthen trust and minimize privacy risks effectively. The LUNDUN model is compatible with most of the other models. Combining it with one or more other models in a hybrid approach ensures privacy is integrated into all risk management activities. Unlike traditional linear threat models, which often focus on a single dimension, such as an attack type or a system's weaknesses, multidimensional models assess threats from various angles to provide a comprehensive risk evaluation. These models are used because modern security challenges involve complex interactions between technology, processes, and human behavior. Cyber threats are no longer isolated incidents, but interconnected risks that impact organizations at different levels. Multidimensional threat models help organizations to identify and categorize threats based on multiple factors, including financial impact, operational disruptions, and reputational risks. Assess risks quantitatively and qualitatively, allowing for data-driven security decision-making. Prioritize threats based on business-critical factors, ensuring resources are efficiently allocated. Implement mitigation strategies that address not just technical vulnerabilities, but also procedural, legal, and human factors. Examples include FAIR and OCTAVE. FAIR, Factor Analysis of Information Risk. FAIR is a quantitative risk assessment framework that measures risk in financial terms, helping organizations make informed cybersecurity investment decisions. Instead of treating risk as a vague or qualitative concept, FAIR defines risk as a function of threat event frequency, vulnerability, and loss magnitude. OCTAVE, Operationally Critical Threat, Asset, and Vulnerability Evaluation, is a set of risk-based assessment methodologies developed at Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute, SEI, helping organizations to identify and prioritize the assets most critical to their mission or business objectives, evaluate current security practices, identify vulnerabilities, and develop risk mitigation strategies. When examining the key aspects of OCTAVE, the methodology places significant emphasis on organizational context, acknowledging that security risk is not solely about technology, but also involves processes, people, and culture. This broader view incorporates business objectives and operational requirements, highlighting that an organization's security posture is shaped as much by policies and procedures as it is by technical controls. An essential feature of OCTAVE is its focus on critical assets. Rather than spreading resources thinly across all systems, OCTAVE begins by identifying the assets that, if compromised, would have a serious impact MEFs, ensuring that the most valuable data, systems, or processes receive appropriate attention in the risk assessment and mitigation strategy. OCTAVE is also designed to be self-directed. Rather than relying primarily on external consultants, organizations conduct the assessment themselves. Individuals from various departments participate, providing subject matter expertise and contextual awareness of the business. This collaborative approach means OCTAVE outcomes are closely aligned with the organization's real-world operations and threat landscape. A typical OCTAVE implementation proceeds through 3 phases. 1. The organization establishes asset-based threat profiles by identifying critical assets and outlining possible threat scenarios. Second, the broader infrastructure is evaluated to uncover vulnerabilities in systems, networks, and practices. 3. The team develops a risk mitigation plan that includes technical, procedural, and policy-driven measures, ensuring security improvements align with business objectives and constraints. Compared to other threat models, such as STRIDE, PASTA, or specific application-level frameworks, OCTAVE stands out for its organization-wide, context-driven perspective. Many other methods concentrate on technical aspects like software design or data flows. In contrast, OCTAVE integrates strategic business drivers with technical evaluation, aiming to protect what matters most to the organization's mission. It also places risk assessment within a continuous cycle of identification, prioritization, and remediation, ensuring security efforts remain aligned with evolving business goals and threat environments. Control-centric threat models focus on identifying security risks and mitigating them through the implementation of specific security controls. Unlike other threat models that primarily assess threats based on attackers' perspectives, vulnerabilities, or business impact, control-centric models emphasize security measures and how they can be applied to reduce or eliminate risks. These models are widely used in industries where regulatory compliance and adherence to security frameworks are essential, such as finance, healthcare, and government sectors. Control-centric threat models operate by mapping identified risks to existing or required security controls, ensuring that protective measures align with established security frameworks, such as NIST Cybersecurity Framework. ISO/IEC 27001, Information Security, Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection, Information Security Management Systems, Requirements. PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. Control-centric models differ from other methods in 4 ways. Instead of analyzing threats from an adversarial standpoint, control-centric models prioritize security defenses, ensuring that mitigation measures are in place to counter potential risks. These models align closely with industry regulations and standards, making them essential for organizations that must meet legal and compliance requirements. While some models, like attack-centric or risk-centric frameworks, focus on identifying how attacks could occur, control-centric models proactively implement controls to prevent, detect, and respond to threats. Control-centric models provide a checklist-based approach, ensuring organizations systematically implement security measures rather than relying on ad hoc threat mitigation strategies. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, is a set of guidelines and best practices published by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, to help organizations manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. Originally developed in response to a U.S. executive order targeting critical infrastructure security, it has since been adopted well beyond the critical infrastructure sector due to its flexibility and clear structure. Its popularity can be attributed to its broad applicability, modular design, and the fact that it is grounded in industry consensus and international standards, offering a common language that organizations of any size or maturity level can use to communicate about cybersecurity risk. Its adaptability also allows it to integrate with other frameworks and compliance requirements, avoiding the need to reinvent the wheel when developing a cybersecurity strategy. Because NIST is a respected U.S. government agency with a strong track record in standardization, the NIST cybersecurity framework carries significant authority and trust in both the public and private sectors. The CSF is divided into 5 core functions. Identify, understanding assets and risks. Protect, implementing safeguards such as access controls and encryption. Detect, monitoring for potential security incidents. Respond, developing incident response plans. Recover, ensuring business continuity after an attack. ISO/IEC 27001 is an internationally recognized standard for information security management systems, ISMS, providing a framework for organizations to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve their information security processes. The core goal of ISO/IEC 27001 is to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information by identifying risks, implementing security controls, and ensuring ongoing monitoring and improvements. At its foundation, ISO/IEC 27001 requires organizations to conduct a risk assessment to determine potential threats and vulnerabilities related to their information assets. Based on this assessment, organizations must implement a risk treatment plan, which includes selecting and applying appropriate security controls from Annex A of the standard. These controls cover various areas such as access control, cryptography, physical security, incident management, and supplier relationships. The standard also emphasizes the importance of leadership commitment, employee awareness, and continuous improvement. ISO/IEC 27001 is part of the broader ISO/IEC 27000 series, which consists of multiple standards that provide further guidance and best practices for information security management. For example, ISO/IEC 27002 offers detailed explanations of security controls and how they can be implemented. ISO/IEC 27005 focuses on risk management methodologies that complement the risk assessment process outlined in ISO/IEC 27001. Other standards in the series, such as ISO/IEC 27017 and ISO/IEC 27018, provide additional guidelines for cloud security and the protection of personally identifiable information in cloud environments, respectively. Organizations that implement ISO/IEC 27001 can pursue certification through accredited bodies demonstrating their commitment to information security best practices. Certification helps build trust with customers, partners, and regulators by proving that the organization follows a structured and internationally accepted approach to managing security risks. While ISO/IEC 27001 provides a high-level framework for information security, its integration with other standards in the 27000 series ensures that organizations can address specific security challenges and regulatory requirements in a structured manner. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, is a set of security requirements designed to protect cardholder data and reduce the risk of fraud. It was developed by the PCI Security Standards Council, PCI SSC, which includes major credit card brands such as Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and JCB. The standard applies to any organization that processes, stores, or transmits payment card data, regardless of size or transaction volume. PCI DSS operates by establishing a framework of 12 core security requirements that organizations must follow to secure their cardholder data environment. These requirements cover areas such as network security, encryption, access control, monitoring, and vulnerability management. Organizations are expected to implement measures such as firewalls, strong authentication protocols, data encryption, regular security testing to mitigate risks. Compliance with PCI DSS is enforced by payment brands and acquiring banks, with penalties for non-compliance that may include fines or the loss of the ability to process card payments. Organizations demonstrate compliance with PCI DSS through regular assessments, which vary depending on their transaction volume and classification. Large organizations typically undergo an annual on-site audit conducted by a qualified security assessor, QSA, while smaller merchants may complete a self-assessment questionnaire, SAQ, to validate their compliance. Additionally, organizations must perform quarterly network vulnerability scans by an approved scanning vendor, ASV, to ensure ongoing security. In summary, in the evolving cybersecurity landscape, selecting the appropriate risk analysis model, or a combination of models, is pivotal for organizations aiming to strengthen their security posture. Each category, from attack-based to control-centric approaches, offers unique advantages tailored to specific needs. Organizations can achieve a comprehensive and adaptive risk management strategy by thoughtfully aligning the selected model with organizational goals, critical assets, and regulatory requirements. This informed choice mitigates vulnerabilities and ensures resilience in the face of emerging threats. Ultimately, the hybrid approach, integrating the strengths of multiple models, represents a forward-thinking solution to navigate the complex challenges of modern cybersecurity. That's it for this video. In the next video, I walk through an example risk analysis for a fictitious financial organization. And until next time, be careful what you click.